Hey, it's AfricaX with Getting Your Affairs in Order. We actually work with various funeral homes in Alberta and in BC, setting up prepaid funeral and cremation packages with individuals who do not want to be a burden on their family when they pass away. On a monthly basis, we hold monthly webinars and information sessions, educating people on the importance of getting their affairs in order before it's too late. We have a lawyer that talks about the importance as to why all individuals over the age of 18 need a will, choosing your executor and other legal documents to have those in place if something was to happen. In that webinar, we also talk about, funeral pre-planning. What does that look like? What the cost kind of looks like, the reasons why to do it in advance. And we even talk about repatriation on that webinar. On a weekly basis, I do a Let's Talk show on Instagram and on Facebook, where I speak with professionals on the topics of death, debt, and getting old. This is to start these uncomfortable conversations in our household before there is any kind of a crisis. For more information on the webinar or on the talk show, feel free to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn with Getting Your Affairs in Order, or you can follow myself, Andrea Cox. Thanks and have a great evening.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dotun Ayodele of AfricaX. I'm here to present to you another interesting and informative edition of our immigration stories. Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing Gifti Girma, a native of Ethiopia, who's been through Europe, Germany to be precise, and now makes her home in Calgary, Alberta. She'll be sharing with us her story, leaving her native Ethiopia as a child with her parents and arriving Calgary as a middle school-aged young woman. Now, then since a lot has happened, but I'll leave the storytelling to her. So without much ado, welcome with me, Gifty. Hi, Gifty.
Hey, Dotun. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. I know it's been a minute trying to make this work, and I'm glad that you were able to find some time to make this work. Thank you very much once again for that.
No problem.
Great. So, without taking any more time, let's just jump right into it. Can you share with us your backstory? Everything prior to Canada that you'd like to tell us that you remember?
I was born in Ethiopia, and then we moved to Germany when I was about 4. So we lived there. I would like to think that half my childhood was in Germany and half was in Canada, but it was very different. I was used to fresh food, and I wasn't used to big chain grocery stores. I was used to little markets. Even in Germany, it was very nice. We walked everywhere. We barely took a car. The lifestyle was very different, and so it was more slow paced. And so even back home, in Ethiopia, there's a lot of joy in enjoying life that I will say. So moving to Canada was like, okay, suburbs, cars, you got to take the bus or like it wasn't the same. It's very different. So those are little things I really loved and enjoyed a lot when I was younger. So
interesting. So yeah, there you go, pointing out the differences that jumped out at you straight away.
Yes.
So this was first things first. Sounded like you were dead in the middle heart of the city. So everywhere you needed to get to, you could get to walking.
Yep.
Right? And you had lots of fresh produce around you, which was not exactly the case in suburbia in Calgary, right?
No, very different. I remember when I moved to Canada, we came directly to Calgary. We've been living here since, and I remember, we enjoyed drinking milk, and so when we came here, milk, I thought someone was playing a prank on me because the milk that I drank was so bitter, and I thought it was just so like not enjoyable. I was like, this is milk? Like the milk that I drank growing up in Germany was not the same. Like we drank like fresh everything was organic and fresh. And so when we moved here, I was like I actually felt like someone was playing a prank on me. And so I will remember those vivid moments of like when we first arrived the first couple of days, and it's like we're trying foods and we're like, this is very different. Yeah.
So milk was not milk.
I don't know how to explain it. It's just very different. Like it's the way it's produced here. It's very different, but that stands out to me very, very vividly. And yeah, I think definitely like Canada in itself culturally. I mean, I'm jumping ahead of our discussion, but Canada itself, just culturally, is very different than Germany. So I think people always think when someone moves from Europe to the US or Canada, they think, it's not a big transition, but I really dealt with a huge culture shock.
Okay, so now that you've gotten ahead of it, let's just jump right into it. Culture shock. What did that entail? You've pointed out the commute, which didn't exist in Germany. Suddenly is a big part of your life now. Everywhere you need to get on the bus or drive a car.
Yeah.
Then you've also talked about milk, which I clearly is a representation of all the rest of your diet in some way or the other.
Yeah.
So probably the beef doesn't taste the same, the milk doesn't taste
Everything
the same,
doesn't taste the same,
vegetables are kind of different, which means the entire diet requires a rejig. Now, apart from that, what are the things that are most different, right, in terms of when you say culture shock? What are the things that like hit you in the face apart from those two?
I mean, I can share this story because I remember when I first, I came literally in the middle of a semester. We landed here late November, in the middle of the school year. And so there was a school down the block from us and they had us registered to go there. And I remember the first couple of days of walking to school, the neighbors would say hello and hi, and I would always be like, what do they want from me? Like, I was not used to such like politeness and friendliness, walking down the street and people are saying hi to you, they're making eye contact with you. Like, it's very different. So in Germany, it's like, it's very much like you kind of mind your business. You don't really interact with other people. And Europe is just a little bit more harsher in the sense of how people communicate, not harsher, but it's just the friendliness was just so excessive that it was like I was very confused. And I remember walking, and at one point, I actually would run across the street because I would be like, do they want something from me? And I also didn't understand English very well, but I just understood the hi and the hello. And so that was for me a huge, huge change. And even going to the classrooms and just seeing how school was done, the education system was done. It was like, there's little things that like, I really remember as you're asking this question, like little things vividly, like notebooks, pens, papers, just the way things are done is just night and day so different. So I can only imagine a child who's migrating here, like you can't explain these things before you actually land, So
No,
those
can't.
are just some of the simple things that really stood out to me.
I like the fact that you've mentioned how people interact because that's something that people have said over and again on this show. And the average person has been arrived as an adult, right? And their own experience has always been, oh, you know what, I arrived Calgary as an adult and people were so helpful and they were willing to help me to find where I was going, ensure I didn't get lost, ensure I had a good experience on my first day, that kind of thing. So hearing you now, without having discussed this with you before, raising the friendliness factor once again, that's almost like gold for me.
Yeah.
Because I've been told that Canadians are extra friendly.
Yeah.
To an extent, I believe that. At least when they meet you the first time, they're the hello, the hi. If not for COVID, some would shake your hand. Some, if they know one, if you have mutual friends, will go as far as giving you a hug. Right, just to let you know that you're welcome and you're here to stay, and they want you to feel at home and all that. So it's just interesting that friendliness is one thing that you will point out to me,
Yeah.
right?
And I
Now
mean,
you
this-
talked about the educational system.
Yeah.
Was it faster? Was it slower? Were the kids? Of course, the kids were friendlier. Clearly, that's the culture. That's the
somewhat.
environment. Yeah. Pardon?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adults were a lot more friendlier than kids, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take
Yeah.
that. I'll
Yeah.
take that. So, in the educational system, did you find it more challenging than when you were in grade 7 in Germany, or less challenging?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was actually. I can't remember the exact timeline, but I'm pretty sure I was like grade 6-ish. But still, like it was. Yeah, it was different. Now, for example, there were certain topics that I felt like Canadian kids didn't have the same level of knowledge in, and one of that was actually geography. And so I remember like when that was maybe one of my favorite subjects. So I was really excited that we're going to talk about geography. And so, but like by the time I came, I knew every single country. I knew I knew so many things in geography that you would think that like this is not necessary to know, you know, but like knowing where things were, whereas Canadian kids didn't actually have that. It's such a simple thing that it makes you, you know, a little bit more aware of what's happening in the world, right, when things are being said. And so
Yep.
I think that was, and I think also like, I mean, I went into ESL immediately, and one of the things that they focused on was for me to learn English, so I wouldn't be behind, right? So I don't have to like be held back, so I can continue my education. So there was definitely things that like the way things were done in Germany was very different. They kind of split you up into different levels of education. So you have Realschule, Hauptschule, and there was a third one I forgot. So basically it's just based on your grading system. They kind of advance you and give you information and educate you based on kind of like what streamline you're going to go to, right? So if you're an honor roll student, it's like you go to a school with honor roll kids, you know? If you were...
Oh,
you
okay.
know,
So basically, you are benchmarked really early, and
you're
then you
benchmarked
stay
really
within that
early.
group.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's that's probably the best way to put it. But so it's kind of like that's how it was back then. And so when we came here, it was like that was one of the biggest differences, was that there was no benchmarking early on. So you kind of had room to grow, obviously, which was nice. But I also felt like there were certain topics where Canadian kids just did not like care for or latch onto things early enough. And so one of them being geography, because I think it makes you a well-rounded person to know different countries, right? So instead of being a little ignorant, right, where they're saying, well, we don't know where this is. And I mean, you know, like reading was a huge part of how we used to do things too in Germany. And so coming here, literacy was not, it was like you had English comprehension because you had to take, you know, English class, but it was very different, I would say.
Okay, you mentioned something about ESL, and
Yeah.
the last person I had who migrated as a very young person said something about ESL classes being kind of like a stigma. Was that the case when you were back then? Where did you have challenges because you couldn't speak the language? Were people mean to you because of that?
Well, I think whenever there's ESL, there's definitely like they kind of mark you as ESL for the rest of your school career.
Oh,
and
boy.
so I think there is that stigma. So if I didn't think of it as stigma, but I do think that if someone's being identified as that, it has its perks, but it also you know, it's you want to feel like you're competent to understand, especially like myself, like my family and I, we worked really hard so that I would learn English so that I would not fall behind. And so I had to learn English, like dialect, how to talk. And so every time I would open my mouth, it'd be a black girl with a German accent, like a very heavy German accent. So you can imagine how kids treated
That's an
me, 'cause-
interesting combo right there.
Exactly. And so ESL was my ticket to correct that linguistically, you know. And so when it comes to writing and grammar, that's something I really struggled with in high school and university. But I definitely think that like initially it was very helpful, but they didn't really do a gauging test to see, do you still need it? They kind of just like leave you in that loop, and then they say, hey,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to what's the word? You have to advocate for yourself when you say, hey, I
Yeah.
actually,
Literally,
you know,
literally fight your way out
you
of it.
have to literally say like, I can understand, I can comprehend, I speak your language now, I understand my reading, thank you very much, like we're
I'm outta
good,
here.
right? Yeah. So, but I don't think, yeah, for me it was never that they like checked in again to see if I still needed ESL. They were just kind of like, well, we see that you were an ESL student, and I'm like 2 years later, I'm like, I'm not new anymore. Someone else can take that time and that space from that teacher, right? So, yeah.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So settling in that sense, the settling in process for you, is that something that took a long time, or you found your feet relatively quickly after a while?
It took me a while. I would think and even as a teenager, like as a preteen teenager, that time it was very much. It took me like I would say at least a year to settle, because it was not what I expected. So the initial shock had to wear off. So that took about 6 months. And you know, my parents were very informed about things, and I'm sure they had their own experiences. But I know for myself, it took me some time for sure to get acquainted to things, and I had lived such a different life. It looked very different, you know, in Germany, and so it was like night and day. So it's almost like I was still in shock for the first little while. So yeah.
Wow. So settling in, establishing yourself, making friends, high school, university,
Yeah.
a career. Haven't been through that phase of coming in, you know, finding your feet. What kind of learnings really have you come away with as an individual that you think would be beneficial to somebody who is in the immigration process? What would you say to them? I know you said something about research, but what would you say to them if somebody like that was listening to you right now?
Yeah, I would say that whatever your dreams are, you know, don't hold back, because there are systems in place, right? So oftentimes when talking to people who are immigrated, or they come with an expectation that is very different than the reality that is here. And I think sometimes when we have dreams, we hang on to those, which are good. But I think too, it's like you need to have almost like hold it loosely. That's what I would say. Hold whatever expectations you have about immigration very loosely, because you could come and expect to live in an igloo, but you don't. You might be disappointed, right? I'm trying to be funny, but
No, I get how that works.
But literally, people have no idea to comprehend. They're leaving something for a better world. And I know that, I mean, I volunteer with a lot of immigration agencies and groups here, and so I know the shock that people deal with, thinking, oh, I didn't expect for my credentials to have to be
To not count.
To not count. I didn't expect that I thought I'd be making like so much more money than I am, or I thought the process would be a lot easier. And so I think that people have this expectation that like moving here solves it. They're so focused on moving that they're forgetting that there's a holistic aspect to immigration that, you know, you need to get. It takes time. Everything you're going to do when you come here takes time. Learning the language takes time. You know, getting placed at a good job takes time. Redoing your credentials so that they would be valid here takes time. So I would say just like hold it loosely and be patient with yourself.
Okay. Now, I am going to reiterate that because you've said it in a way that nobody else has said it on this show. You haven't said forget the dreams. You said hold the dreams loosely. Now,
Yeah.
that sounds to me like, one, be ready to pivot if you need to.
Yes.
Two, however tough or dire the situation is, what you're dreaming for can still come through. It just will require time and
Yes.
effort.
Exactly.
You will have to work for it. It can come if you don't give up.
Exactly. And I think
Wow.
too, it's tough to, because you feel like, no, I deserve this, right? Like we have this entitlement attitude that like, and it's maybe too like a little bit of when we come from various backgrounds of suffering and war, like we look to other countries as a way of starting a new life, right? But it's we have to manage our expectations. We have to manage our realities and say, okay, maybe right now I can't go and do this business, because that's a lot of people want to, for example, they want to come and they want to start a business, but but like researching the market, getting around people, getting networking, like there's different ways that we can put ourselves out there to feel like, okay, like our dreams are possible. So that takes time, right, to get there. And so I see a lot of people oftentimes trying to jump ahead of themselves, and then they get so disappointed. And I've seen a lot of people move back because of those disappointments. So,
wow. So, now in terms of research, because you mentioned something about, working with immigration organizations, volunteering.
Yeah.
In terms of research, where do you think people who are in the process should spend most of their time in terms of research? Is it where to live, the kind of neighborhoods, career transition opportunities? Where do you think they should spend most of their research time?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. I definitely think living obviously is a priority, but you don't, like, I think what I find beautiful about the internet is that you can find support groups for different things, right? So the internet is a vast place. So I'm sure somebody has written a blog about what their experiences is, and you could reach out to them and connect with people, right? Exactly. You could listen to someone like, Dotun's channel. And so there's different ways, even on YouTube, even on Facebook, like utilizing those social media platforms to actually provide you with more real life on the ground information, right? For example, like if you're traveling to another country and you're booking an Airbnb, you want to see the reviews that other people have had before you go ahead and make that decision to get that location. We can't dive into, get a place and all that. We need almost like it would be ideal if we could find mentors and people to walk with us. But I do think that there's support groups and there's groups that are probably available online that you can just be aggressive in your search for people that, like, hey, whether it's like you're connected through some kind of soccer league. I'm sure there's a soccer league in every city, right? Or it's a church community, or do you get what I mean? That there's different support groups that you can join, and that'll actually give you insight to say, okay, like now that I'm building relationships, I want to get the real deal, right? Because when you go to government websites and you go to different things, that's just one. You want 3D information, not just 1D, right? You want to look at the whole picture. So that's what I would suggest to people.
I like what you've done there. 1D, that's a party line. That's the official statement. That's the newsletter. 3D, that tells you what happened, your side, my side.
Yeah, and the truth.
And then what really happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is what is called holistic information and can make a difference.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
You are, without saying so, you are saying, hi, find your tribe, find your network, find your community, find the formal newsletter, find the formal information, then find the community that's going to
compare notes,
talk you through and tell you how it really is on the ground, and help you walk through that process from your medicals till you're finally boots on the ground, that kind of thing.
And I also think that it's a really, like, it's a very, immigration is such a tough, and like, it is a tough process, and I've seen a lot of people go through it. And even when I worked at EY, like, this is we were helping people, migrate, through company things, and I see that it really has a toll on people. And so you need so many things in place, and you don't want to miss out on any paperwork and all this stuff. So I agree, like, look at what you need to have prepared, and then also get on the ground information from people that, you can just find groups. I'm sure if you just look up support groups in whatever city you're trying to live in, you'll find it.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. So I'm just going to highlight a few things that you've mentioned tonight, because those are key, and those are things that can make a difference in people's lives. Number one, hold your dreams loosely. Don't throw the dreams away. You need them. They will motivate you, but hold them loosely.
And there's also a time for every dream to come to fruition. So
exactly, which is why you need to hold it loosely, because there will be dream, then there will be time before fulfillment.
Yes.
So hold your dreams loosely. Be ready to work hard for them. because in working hard for your dreams, that's when they can come to pass.
Yeah.
Find your tribe,
Yeah.
find your community,
Yeah.
find the people who will tell you the boots on the ground real story of how it's going down, and will help you to make it through the initial challenging phase, whether it's finding your way in country or when you arrive prior to getting back on your feet. Then do your research in terms of whether it's your career path or where you're going to live or how you're going to raise your kids. Do your research and be comfortable with your findings. And even if you're not exactly comfortable, at least have enough information to be able to take an informed decision at as much as possible every step of the way. I think that's kind of summarizes the key things that you highlighted so far. Now, the beautiful thing about this conversation is it's kind of very different from all the others I've had so far. But I like the fact that you've come up with all these very deep and intense points.
Because it's not just my perspective, right? So when I'm coming here and I'm sharing, it's from the stories of people that I have, worked with and different groups I've served in, and just seeing and walked with people. And I think these are things that it's not just my experience, but I'm bringing in stories from people that I know that for sure, we've had conversations like this, right? And so even young people that move here, I have a lot of young people that move here that tell me, man, I thought I was going to make all this money, and they're always looking for a quick fix. And I'm saying, listen, you need to grind. You will have to have to go to school and you have to work. Nothing is promised easy. So, we're so used to a different lifestyle, right? It's a change of lifestyle. Immigrating is a change of lifestyle. So be prepared for your lifestyle to be completely changed. And this is where you got to say, okay, there's a time for everything. There's time to grind. There's time to enjoy. So
nice. Yeah. Do you mind telling us a bit about what you do right now? Because I think that will also be beneficial to our audience.
Yeah, so I am an associate pastor at Journey Church in Calgary. And I've been in ministry for the last 10 years and been bivocational up until 2019. And I also run a business doing diversity coaching. So I'm a diversity strategic specialist. And so I actually help not just companies, but churches and NGOs really diversify their leadership team. I think it's really important because a lot of times maybe it's all men, or it's all people who there's no people that look like me, and I'm always wanting to advocate for things that are inclusive, right? And so that's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm really blessed that I get to do the things that I'm passionate about, and I love what I do. So, yeah.
Nice. Wow. This has been a very fulfilling conversation for me because, hey, right from when this show was conceived, you were one of the people I had in mind specifically to speak to, and I'm glad we've been able to make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing from your wisdom and your experience. And thank you for speaking from your heart, because at the end of the day, when you speak from the wealth of what you know, you're literally giving of yourself.
Yeah.
So thank you for this. And
thanks for having me.
On another day, when we find your skill set and your wealth of wisdom required once again, I hope you will honor us once again with your presence.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you very much.
No problem.